Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Honor to the Sublime One, the Worthy One, the Fully Enlightened One. Or as I like to say also, the cool dude. That's they're talking about the Buddha and that. So, welcome to this Dhamma talk. Metta, I've seen you before. Vista, I'm not sure if I've ever met you before at one of my events here at the Buddha Center, so I'll give an introduction. My name is Jayantha, that's my Pali name, formerly known as Ferox here. I've been a staff member at the Buddha Center for, it'll be 2 years in December. I'm a 34-year-old lay Buddhist disciple of the Theravada tradition, and what that means, being a lay Buddhist, is that I am not a monk or a master or anything like that, just a regular Buddhist person on his path of Dhamma. So what we do here every Tuesday is have somewhat of a traditional Dhamma talk, although I like to make it more of a Dhamma discussion per se. In a traditional Dhamma talk, when you go and you listen to the monks talk, you listen to them for a certain amount of time, and then after that there's a question and answer period. So it's tradition that you keep your questions and comments until the end. Since I'm not a monk, and since, like I just previously said, I like to have a discussion at any time while I'm yapping on and on. If you have any comments or questions and you'd like to initiate a discussion while I'm talking, then that's fine as well, because this is how we learn Dhamma from each other, and we teach and come together in this way as Dhamma brothers and sisters. So now, I usually, those of you who've heard me talk before, those of you who've heard me talk before, you know that oftentimes the day before, I don't prepare for these talks. I follow the Theravada monk way of, basically, when you talk, you're supposed to be talking out of your own insight, your own wisdom and knowledge, and what I do here is do that out of my limited insight and knowledge. But what I usually end up having is, when I do my walking meditation in the morning, a topic will usually come to me, and no topic came to me this morning. And I was thinking just about an hour ago, well, I could do another section last week, and what I do often, especially if there's not too many people, I'll give the floor out to anybody who has questions, like a specific question about a specific thing related to Buddhism, and we can discuss from there. The other thing that I thought of as a possible topic was to talk about the suttas, go over the basics of what the suttas are and why they're important and that such thing. So I guess at this point I'll open it up to, if anybody has any questions or anything related to Buddhism that you'd like me to discuss, or would like the Sangha here to discuss. If there isn't any specific questions, then I'll talk about the suttas. While the suttas are important, that topic can be dry for most people. So sometimes it's better to discuss other things. Evil, you always have one. That's why I love when you come here. When it'll be your time to not come around anymore, I'll miss you, because I won't have people don't ask questions. Feel free to type out your questions and I'll try to address them one by one. Dragon, you can also, if you have a question or anything that comes to your mind right now, you can type that now as well. So what is the point of what? Of life in general? Of living itself? I don't know if I can, I think I'll answer this from a little bit of my experience. Evil, you know that I feel like I'm on the path to becoming a monk, right? And I've recently befriended somebody at work, and he's a young married guy. You know, we became friends kind of out of, you know, running and stuff like that. And so I've been hanging out with him, and we did this cancer walk on Sunday, and my friend and his wife brought their friend, and you know, basically the thing is that I think they're trying to like hook me up with this, you know, this female single friend of theirs, and which is kind of funny because my friend Matt knows that I go to the monastery and stuff like that, and I think to myself, you know, she was nice and we had a good time, and I think to myself, okay, so from this point on, if I went with this person and I got married and I had kids and I had a job and I grew old, and at the end of my life, what would be the point of it? Still, all things I would be separated from, right? All things are impermanent. All things are unsatisfactory. I might be with this person for a short time. Something will happen and it'll end. I might be with this person for the rest of my life. All life, even if you live to 100, that's a short time. The Buddha talked about how very, very short the lifespan of a human it is, and not to waste any time in anything but practice. So you can think of it the other way. If I became a monk and I gave up all of those things, if I gave up, you know, having a companion or a paramour or wife, whatever, if I gave up being able to do fun things like parkour and exercise and travel and all these things that I like to do as a layperson now, what would be the point of that? And in my mind, giving all that up is actually more important. It makes more sense to me than to live in all of that. It's almost like the Matrix thing, the whole red pill, blue pill thing. Yeah, I can take the blue pill. I can stay in lay life. I can get married. I can do all that stuff that everybody else does. But really, I'm just living in a dream. And it's going to end. If I take the red pill and I go to see reality as it truly is, and to practice and to dedicate my life to that practice, then is that the way to go, to find that truth? For me, I think it is. Other people, everybody is in their different stages of the path, different stages of development. So if you don't want to, I think that, oh yeah, well, all things end. I think evil, where you might have been going with that is, should you just be, what about people who, if you, everything's all impermanent, you know, might as well just sit here and be depressed about life, or just this or that. And like, if it's impermanent, why the hell, why bother? You know, I don't know if that's where you're coming from, but the great thing about that everything is impermanent is that when you know and accept that it will be gone one day, you can enjoy it in the present moment more fully than anyone else ever could, as they worry about the future. And when you are able to do that, then you are truly living life. You are truly there in the experience, rather than thinking, this person is going to die eventually, why bother with this person, or this, this ride is going to end, why not, why have fun, because it's going to end. That is not attachment. Yeah, it's not attachment, because you are just being in the experience in the present moment. If you had an attachment to it, when that experience ended, you'd think back, it's like, oh, I like that experience, I wanted to have it more. And so, did you see what I just did? I went right from the past to the future. I like that experience, I want to have it more. And what you're doing when you're in the past and you're in the future, you're not in the present moment anymore. And as I've said before, the past and the future only exist in your mind. There is no such thing as the past, no such thing as the future, only the present moment. What's past is shadows and dust. What's future is shifting and uncertain. There is only the present moment. And here now, I am sitting and talking. So, I think that maybe in an intellectual level, to think, oh, well, they're saying, oh, everything's all impermanent, everything's unsatisfactory, even the fun stuff in life, like I don't know, like sex and drugs and rock and roll and all that fun stuff, it's all unsatisfactory. I don't know, how's that unsatisfactory, you might say? Because it's unsatisfactory simply because it is impermanent, because it is ever changing. That is why it's unsatisfactory. That's why all things are unsatisfactory, because they are ever changing. They begin, they climax, and they end. It's like the mountain peak. You begin, you come to the peak, and then you end. All things. When you're following the breath, the point that when you're doing meditation and you're observing an object like the breath, that's what you're observing. You're observing that the breath begins, it comes to a climax, and it ends. You have an itch. It begins, it comes to a climax, and it ends. Why can't all things be satisfactory? Because they are now. Do you mean in the present moment can they be satisfactory? Well, they don't have to be, but we have greed, hatred, and delusion, right? So things are satisfactory or unsatisfactory depending on what we like and dislike. Now, the term unsatisfactory is just another term for dukkha, which, as we know, has a million definitions. So when I say unsatisfactory, maybe I should be saying dukkha instead, because I think that has a different connotation in terms of what we're talking about. Because what we're talking about is the three characteristics of existence: anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness or stress or suffering, and not self or soullessness. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about unsatisfactory. Unsatisfactory meaning that they can never fully give us satisfaction, because all things are impermanent. We attach to things that are impermanent, and therefore this can never bring us satisfaction. Grim. That's an interesting one. That goes more into really dependent on the sect of Buddhism. Now, Theravada, you will see for the most part that let me first say that this Buddha is never, as far as I know, in any tradition considered a god of some sort. Now, where the sects differ is whether the Buddha was a completely and utterly human person, or whether he was a super mundane person, like he was kind of human but he also had these powers and this and that. That's where you're going to get the differences. And from my experience of what I can see, from what I've learned, is that you're going to see that there's more things attributed to the Buddha in terms of powers and what they call the super mundane in the Mahayana kind of traditions. Whereas in Theravada, he was just a guy. He might have developed, or he might have had these powers, these psychic powers, these mental powers that were developed over his lifetimes, and that's something that we all could do as we develop through our path. But in the Mahayana, there's a, and I can't really go into it. I don't want to go into it because I don't want to misrepresent it. But I just want to stay completely and utterly basic of what I know, and I'm not going to go any more into that. But really, in the end, it comes down to more of what your perspective is. To me, to me the Buddha is just a regular person, and to me that makes him more impressive than any god or deity or anything that could exist. Because the fact that a regular person could find enlightenment, not only it means that I could do that, it means that anybody could do it. It means, and that, to me, that puts a greater achievement onto that. So for me personally, the Buddha was just a regular guy. That's why I call him the awesome dude. That's why when I do the homage to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, the Buddha is the awesome dude who rediscovered the path. The Dhamma is the path, the truth, and the Sangha are the keepers of that path. Yes, and like I said, in terms of when you're revering, you're not, nobody is worshiping Buddha as a god. Now there is the Pure Land sect that I don't believe they worship Amitabha as a god per se. He's just a Buddha, but they have a belief that if they repetitively say his name, then they can be reborn in his Pure Land. And again, I'm not a scholar of Mahayana, and I don't want to misrepresent it. That's just the very, very basic of what I know. And if I ever say anything that is misrepresenting, please feel free to correct me and to give the correct. Because we all learn from each other. That is the most important thing. Well, I think it might do that because they're used to that concept. The Pure Land is kind of like a heaven, right? you're kind of praying to Amitabha, at least in their perspective of seeing that. Yeah, exactly. But Grim, that's where, and you know, where it really also stems from is, as any belief system, philosophy, religion spreads, it comes into contact with different cultures, and it merges into that culture. So you're going to have this variety. What I do know is that from the Theravada perspective and the ancient texts, the Buddha was just a regular person. Now, the only, from the Theravada perspective, the only thing that made the Buddha different than us was that they, the term Buddha, or the designation Buddha, is reserved for the person who finds the teaching on their own after it has been lost for a long period of time, and then brings it to others. And when you follow the path of the teaching, you become an arhat, which is an enlightened being. So basically, the Buddha stated that the Dhamma comes into being through a Buddha who found it. They don't create it. This is an ancient path. The Buddha talked about it as an ancient path that he took to find an ancient city. And it's just as if a person found an ancient city and went back to the king and said, rebuild this city so it can be glorious once again. And so that's the designation. That's what that's what a Buddha is for. So in the future, when there's no more Dhamma, there's no more Buddhism, that's all dead and gone, then there's another Buddha that comes and brings it back. And so in the Theravada tradition, that's where the term Buddha comes from. Or at least that's the designation of the term Buddha. But in the end, again, whether you believe the Buddha was just a regular person, and whether you believe he had special powers, in the end it really doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is practice, because whatever you believe the Buddha was, you can't deny what he said. And he said, practice, don't worry about these things. You'll never know the Buddha range of the Buddhas. You'll never know the range of Kamma. You'll never know all of these imponderables. The only thing you need to do is practice. That's it. Don't stop those questions. Even if you think that it's not a good one or whatever, just always ask it. Because an unquestioned answer, or an unasked question, is an unanswered answer, or something like that. I don't know. Or the other one, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Especially in Buddhism, because in Buddhism, self-inquiry, free inquiry, questioning is such a huge part of this practice, of the practice of Dhamma. Thank you for that quote, Metta. And you know, it's interesting that the term Buddha nature, right? The term Buddha nature is not found in Theravada. But it's basically the same thing. Buddha nature, if I'm not mistaken, the way the Mahayana believes Buddha nature is that basically we're already Buddhas, but we are corrupted in terms of all the defilements and the fetters, and we have to remove these to reveal our Buddha natures, right? To practice. Now, in Theravada, basically everybody can become an enlightened person. So it's the same thing, I think. It's just that it's kind of worded differently and comes about it the same way. I don't think there's any form of Buddhism that I've found that doesn't say that anybody can be enlightened, which is good. That's the way it should be. In some translations, they talk about things being dukkha and not self. You know, the chants are simply, all the chants are the actual suttas themselves, for the most part. They are the teachings. When you go to a monastery a lot and you listen to the chants and you're able to chant with the monks and you see the translations, all the chants are the actual teachings themselves. When you're chanting it, you're reminding yourself of the teachings. So of course there's going to be, talking about the characteristics of existence of all things: impermanent, unsatisfactory, soulless. So do we have any more questions, comments? Remember, anything related to, any questions you have related to Buddhism in any way, you can ask that. I'm a big one of that. I overthink everything. But now I've come to the point that I realize that I can actually not necessarily shut down the thinking, but like for instance, I was doing my parkour practice on Saturday, and you get to do the same repetitive motion over and over and over, right? And then you start to analyze and you start to think about every little aspect of it, and then you start to make mistakes and you get frustrated. But when you just stop, close your eyes, you meditate for a couple seconds, you just clear your mind, and then you just do it, it's like, whoa, I did it. I did even better than I ever did it before. That's overthinking, and it's the same thing when it comes to meditation, because you can be, and believe me, I've sat there when I go to the monastery and do the retreats. Sometimes you're meditating for an hour or 2 hours, and your mind you can overthink everything. Is my hands in the right position? Is my butt in the right position? Am I on my sits bones? And my fingers? And you can just go through these loops and loops and loops of overthinking. And the purpose of the practice is actually not to think. Intellectualizing does not work in the practice of Dhamma. What we're doing is developing wisdom through direct analysis of experience, and not analysis with your mind or through intellectual analysis of observation, just observing and developing wisdom. So thinking too much can be a hindrance, just like anything else. Welcome back, Fizz. That's okay. The more you practice, the easier it gets. All things go away. That's the point. Okay? Evil was here. I got maybe about 3 weeks ago, where I had and I talked to in one of my Dhamma talks. I talked about this. There's been in the past. I've been past the point where I've developed where I've gotten to where I can literally, my mind will just stop thinking, and I will just basically, the monkey mind will disappear. It will go quiet. And the first time it happened, it was like a really weird experience. Really weird experience. And then just about 3 weeks ago, I was doing my walking meditation and it happened again. I mean, it's happened many times since then, so it's not this weird. I just know, you observe, you say, okay, my mind is this way now. But what changed, because all things are changing, was that while I expected it to last maybe a minute, it kept going. It kept going. It kept going. And kept going. And 15-20 minutes into it, I'm like, well, I'm not, my monkey mind's gone. It's not, all these thoughts are not racing through my mind. What the heck is going on? This is amazing, right? So and it kept going, and I would say probably I went maybe 3 to 4 days without the monkey mind. And what I mean by without the monkey mind is you still have conscious thoughts, but all of the subconscious thoughts that bombard you, i.e. the monkey mind, all of that stuff that comes from the subconscious was totally calm. And evil can know that. When I talked about this, I said, I know that this won't last forever. Nothing does. Even something, a state of peace that we have, it doesn't last forever. This is why when they talk about the practice, all things that occur are phenomena, and all phenomena are to be observed, and that's it. Ah, well, yeah, that's when you become enlightened. Because you are, at that point, there is no greed, hatred, and delusion, right? There is no, that's not to say that the Buddha didn't think or have thoughts. But all of that clarity, that monkey mind, was gone. There were no thoughts of the future, no thoughts of the past. All of these things that cloud us, that is the clarity of mind. But when you do your practice, whatever happens, even the most, and they talk about this when you're going through the jhanas, even the most blissful, happy state is an impermanent state. It is a phenomena to observe, not to get attached to, not to fall into. Ah, it's so nice and happy, this state. Not to fall into or attach to it, just to observe it. Observe its qualities, observe what happens, observe as it comes, observe as it goes. Simple as that. So when you get attached to it, that's when you're going backwards. But we might naturally get attached to it, just like we naturally judge ourselves and others in all aspects, even in our meditations while we're thinking. I shouldn't be thinking that. It's like we're sitting in meditation in the holy, in parentheses, the holy Dhamma hall, meditation hall, or temple, or whatever, and then all of a sudden we have thoughts about I don't know, having sex with the, you know, the hot chick or the hot guy or whatever. It's like, oh, that's bad. You know, that's the old Catholic guilt comes in, right? Ooh, that's a bad thing. I'm supposed to be here, being all peaceful and chaste and nice and following the 8 precepts and stuff like that, right? and then it comes, and all of that attachment to the guilt, to the judging, to all of that, that is all, again, phenomena just to be observed. No, you don't want to. You might naturally have those thoughts and feelings of guilt come up, right? But as you practice, you're more easily able to just observe it, not get carried along with it. A thought occurs, you observe the thought. Then there's a feeling connected to the thought, and then there's you know, a judgment or something like that. And all you do is you keep observing it, so that no matter what happens, you're just observing, not attaching and not trying to run away from it. Like I'm going to be trying to run away from all the pain I'm going to have for meditating 6 hours a day next week for 7 days. Trust me, it happens. It's a lot easier. I don't run away from it like I used to, but I still do, and I probably still will until such time as I also become enlightened. We'll see. Yeah, I would think about, if you want to think about pain, right? Most people have aversions to pain, right? But then there's people that like it, don't they? They hire them dominatrixes to beat them up and stuff like that, and they get some kind of a sexual thrill out of it. So there can be a passion there as well. You know, some people just like pain, either to inflict it on others or to inflict it on themselves. So that, again, is, like you said, not to embrace it either. It's just to observe it as it is. Observe the pain come and go. Although, in all honesty, I still have a hard time doing that. Because I could be observing it like, okay, I'm pretty sure I've had this pain for about 15-20 minutes. It's not going away like they say. When is this pain? When is this pain going away? Oh, I know when it's going to go away. When I shift position. And then maybe it does go away for a little bit, but then it comes back. And the only way it goes away is when you get up and you give up. And then you get up, but then as soon as you go back down on that on that cushion, there it is again. It's like a long lost friend. Yeah. And then through that pain you start to develop negativity, negative feelings and thoughts, to the point where when I walk in that Dhamma hall, when that meditation hall, I start to develop these negative feelings of all the hours and hours I've spent in that hall at Bhavana Society in meditation, in pain, but also all the hours that developed such insight as well. So when you're meditating on a daily basis for maybe 20-30 minutes, and then you're going to be sitting for 2 hours, oh, it ain't easy. That should be, and you should expect that. Oh well, yeah, of course, because they've been doing especially the Sri Lankan monks. They've been sitting in meditation, you know, or any of the monks that come from the cultures. They've been sitting in meditation since they were like 3 years old, you know. So they're so used to it. It's like nothing, you know. But no, I mean, even they still have pains and stuff like that as well. You know, I mean, I'm sure it's easier, but it still doesn't stop you from having pain. You know. How can we ever love anything? Well, when we do metta meditation, what we're trying to do is develop a equanimity, loving kindness, loving friendliness for all beings. If you talk about love as in sensual love, then that is an attachment that is impermanent and thus is unsatisfactory. But equanimity for all beings, developing that even-handedness, loving friendliness, is destroying your greed and your hatred and your delusion. So therefore, it is much better. Well, Dragon, it takes, you know, listen, I've been meditating, I would say on and off I've been meditating for about a decade. Now, I would say that I haven't been able to seriously advance in my practice and develop insights and get more peaceful, you know, to get peace out of my meditation and to be with it and to let go. That's probably only within the last 3 years. So 10 years total, most of it filled with frustration, most of it filled with quitting meditation and having long periods of time without doing any meditation. So meditation is something just like anything else. You start out, you sit down. If you can only sit down for 2 minutes, that's how long you sit down. Well, Dragon, that is the ultimate point. There is no meditation. Being mindful is something that we want to develop in everything we do 24/7 while we're awake. Meditation is not just sitting on the cushion. Especially if you like walking meditation like myself. But you are trying to, what I do find, however, is that it's a lot, the other aspects of the meditation and the mindfulness come from that, either the sitting or the walking practice. And when you're able to practice sitting and walking, or lying down, you know, when you're able to do that over time, then what you're doing is you're breaking through the cloud and being able to see more and more of your mental processes deeper and deeper into your subconscious. So when that happens, any time of the day, it's easier to be mindful. Any kind of community is always great. That's why we have the Sangha, the fourfold assembly, the monks, nuns, lay women, lay men, Dhamma brothers and sisters, Dhamma friends. That is why we have, the Buddha said that, well, Ananda said to him in one sutta, Blessed One, I think that good friends are half the holy life. And the Buddha said, no, good friends are the whole of the holy life. So when you are able to be with Dhamma friends, even if it's just virtually like we are now, It makes a huge difference in your practice. Do not associate with fools. Only associate with the wise, the Buddha said. And in all honesty, as you develop your practice, that is what you do. The people who you considered friends in the past, who are doing unbeneficial, unskillful things, and kind of just going along in life, you run out of commonality with them. So you naturally just kind of grow apart, and you come to find that it's better not to have anybody, not to have any friends, if you can't have good Dhamma friends. Because, and that's another quote the Buddha said, if you cannot find any friends, then go it alone. Go into the woods, into the forest, and be an ascetic. But yeah, so that's why we are, in this day and age, we are lucky to be reborn or born. That even though we might be in the most far-flung parts of the planet, we can come together here in this virtual space and develop our meditation and listen to Dhamma, spread Dhamma, and move further along the path. So our time is rapidly drawing to a close. If there's any final comments or questions, we have about 9 more minutes. If not, then I think we can end. Always good to have people who participate and who question and who comment. And thank you all for doing that today. That's another sim. They have some pretty neat, in Second Life, they have some pretty neat campfire things. I've actually owned a few in the past, back when I did other things in Second Life besides log in to do Buddha stuff. Now I pretty much don't do anything in Second Life other than when I have to come in for a Dhamma talk or the Metta meditation on Thursday. But there are some pretty neat fire camp things in Second Life. There is more to life than just Buddhism. Of course there is. There is Dhamma. There is nothing but Dhamma. Dhamma is the true nature of things, true nature of reality. Oh, if I can do that, then that's very good. If I don't do that, then that's also very good. That's something I learned from Ajahn Brahm. Good enough. Care but not be attached. I think that's something that can be done. It's just really hard. I think that is something, if there is somebody that needs help, I think you can help them or I think that you can care for them. But think about, what is caring? Analyze the actual caring of somebody. What is that exactly? Oh, yeah, there can be an attachment in that, but to care for somebody, you can care for the sick, you can care for different, but you can do many beneficial and skillful acts that don't necessarily have to have an attachment, right? But we do have these attachments, and the thing that we do to try to lessen these is to observe them, to see them in action. I don't think that the other thing is this. All of these, when we become dispassionate, when we lessen our attachments, it's something that happens naturally through wisdom, through insight that you've seen. You should never worry about, am I attached to this? Am I too attached? Do I have too much aversion to this? Do I have that in itself is ignorance. That's greed, hatred, and delusion right there, because you're worried about these things. When it is time to be dispassionate, when it is time to have less attachments, that will be the time. Until then, all you need to do is practice. If we could say, it's time to have no attachments, well, I'm going to become a monk, and everybody tried to become a monk, 99.9% of the people just wouldn't be able to do it. You have to have that certain point of dispassion, detachment towards things in life. So you shouldn't feel bad if you don't have that, or you shouldn't feel that you're not supposed to attach. All you need to do is practice, and by doing that, you observe things as they truly are. And when you start to observe things as they truly are, that is when dispassion, detachment comes naturally. You give things up, and it's not a vow. It's not like a New Year's Eve resolution, whereas I'm going to give up drinking this year, or I'm going to lose 20 pounds. And then what happens? It never happens, or it go back on. Vows are made to be broken, because vows are of the will, whereas dispassion and detachment come naturally from wisdom. It's not something that you will yourself to do. So never worry about if you're too attached to this, or I should be doing this, or I should be doing that. That's a surefire way to stay mired in samsara and not develop along the path. Because what that is judging yourself, and we don't want to do that. It's part of the 3 conceits, right? What are the 3 conceits? I am better than this person. I am worse than this person. I am equal to this person. I.e., they're all conceits, because they're all based on an ego. No judgment. Now also, don't judge that you're judging, because you are going to judge. I don't want to get back into that whole cycle again. But, all you need to do is observe. It's like your only job is to sit there and watch TV, right? Your only job is to sit there and watch TV. And it's the same thing when you're observing your mind. Your only job is to sit and watch. That's it. Whatever happens, you observe. So I guess we will end there for tonight. Thank you all for your participation. As always, it's wonderful when we can have a good discussion. It's a lot better than me just yapping on and on for an hour. Because even that can get, well, I don't want to be too judgmental, but so again, thank you, and much metta to you all. Sukhi Hantu, may you be happy. And for those of you who will be in metta meditation in 2 days, I will see you then.